Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Johnny Sue is on those ones and twos. I just got a smirk from you today. Why?
No,
Why?
there was just a box on my face. It was funny.
Is that what you were laughing at?
Yeah, that was literally what I was laughing
Holy shnikes. You know, there's hardly even, we just opened the doors. In comes walking Trey Wright, always leading the way. We love you, Trey. Leaves a nice little tip. And then J9 Campbell. The American dream is a killing machine falling in reverse drugs. That's J9 Campbell left a very generous Super A. And also, we got 2 thumbs up right out of the gate. See, fam, when I'm on the show, we get no thumbs down. The trolls come for you. You know what I'm saying?
This is unbelievable.
They come for you.
Blaming the woman right
They
over
look,
here.
you know what I'm saying? You rattle them up. You rattle them up on Odyssey, which is also another outlet we're on, ladies and gentlemen. I believe they're...
because there's a lot of people from the right there, right?
a lot of people from
Yeah.
the right. You know,
Interesting. I didn't know that.
The independent, free-minded, thinking people are on Rokfin. That's the real nuance, people. That's the real shit right over here on Rokfin. And thank you, J9 Cable. Thank you, Trey Wright. That is amazing, guys. Like, share, subscribe. My homeboy Justin called me. No offense. No offense to you either. No offense. We love you. Left a Super Ray. Look at this. Everybody's coming in. Bam, bam, bam. Do I not have the regular? I have the live chat on. We don't even have anybody saying anything without giving us donations.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Oh, my Lord. You're going to make me blush before we have a great guest coming on. Don't distract me.
Pasta. You're so ridiculous. I think
I'm wearing my Niko House shirt today. Niko House returned to Twitter the other day. So, anyways, yeah, that's that. So, guys, somebody called me the other day. My boy Justin, what's up, Jay? He said, hey, you know, how can I help? Because I don't know what's going on with Patreon. I'm not too happy about them. Obviously, YouTube's doing their things. I'm like, get a subscription on Rokfin. We're like at 184, 185, or maybe even 186. It's been going right around that range for the last couple days. So we're like 15 away from getting to that nice 200 number that we love to get.
Yeah.
So if you got your check, $9.99 a month gives you all the premium content across the board, including everybody's premium content, not just ours, but you get everybody's premium content for one payment of $9.99, and you're actually helping the platform. You're buying into it. And we always say this too as well. Buy into some of the gains. I know some people called me and they're like, oh, look at this cultist demon. Oh, ask Kshama if she's still down on legacy of the Soviet Union. They did not give everyone a job, eradicate homelessness, provide free health care and education to their citizens. Crime, especially violent crime, was almost unheard of. They had maternity leave, subsidized cultural events, and even transportation. Does that count for nothing? The authoritarianism protected all of those things. And that is from Cultist Demon. What a great statement as you're jumping in right there. Something to think about. Carrie Mark, another love. I mean, you guys are just, it's Friday Love Day.
Yeah.
It's like the Love Lounge, fam. Yeah. Anyways, back to Justin, and thank you very much, everybody. Justin asked me, what can I do? I said, J-Roll, just get a subscription to Rokfin. Get involved in the monetary gains with this whole thing. There were some people who bought it when it was like at the high $2 prices. It sunk down. Somebody called me. I'm nervous. I'm like, just let it sit. Just let it wait. And now it's matriculating up and up and up and up. We've told you about Bitcoin matriculating up and up and up. We've told you about Ethereum matriculating up and up and up. It's a good thing long term. That's just our opinions. We're not money managers or crypto managers. It's just our opinions. We're into it. And it's also about taking power back for the people. Not the end solution, as Fam will tell you, because a lot of people don't have access to banking. People don't have access to phones, the internet, and stuff like that. So we're going to still have to help the poorest of the poorest, but it is a good transition away from the federal banks and all the monetary banks and the IMF and all these people having all the control where they can sanction, pillage, or just rob you. They can't do that with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into this quick subject real quick. We're going to just do this really, really quick. This is a quick subject because AOC versus Ted Cruz, fam. You know, when Muhammad Ali fought Frazier, they did the Thriller in Manila. Before that, they did the Rumble in the Jungle. This is the second fight for them, so I called it the Disorder at the Border. And it's kind of funny to see Ted Cruz calling out... he put up the word matriculate. Ted Cruz calling out AOC about what's going on the border. First of all, your initial thoughts on that. I mean, we were laughing at the fact that it had to be Ted Cruz to show us this shit, but here is AOC. She was crying out in front of the facility, supposedly, when Donald Trump was there. It is awful. Now the numbers are way higher than they ever were in Donald Trump as far as people in cages, facilities, whatever you want to call them. Your initial thoughts right there.
Well, AOC's a hypocrite. Because when Donald Trump was doing this, she wouldn't stop talking about it, constantly calling it out, and she went to the border, had that photo shoot where she wore white and she started crying. And the same thing when it came to Syria. I mean, I said this last night. Syria, like, she literally called Trump the Mad King when there was the situation with when there was a strike in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to Syria and we just bombed Syria, she completely hasn't said a single word. So AOC does play party politics. She literally is doing this with Ted Cruz. This is classic AOC, bringing up what happened on January 6th still, making it about her. Oh, your resignation. We need your resignation. And having this back and forth with Cruz instead of saying, these conditions are gross. You expose this. Let's work together to find a solution. This is unacceptable. Let's put party politics aside. Let's get this situation resolved. She could be doing that, but she refuses to work with anybody in the Republican Party. And it's not like Ted Cruz is like, the fighter for immigration justice or anything like that. But he did show what was happening. And is he manipulating this? Of course, for his own narrative. But AOC could be smarter and actually clap back and be like, okay, well, since you're showing me all this, thank you for showing me. Now let's find a solution. She's not doing that. She's just playing the game.
It's funny because when Ted Cruz first said, let's work together on something, that was the Wall Street bets thing. That was what was going on. That was more, not her wheelhouse. And when she shunned him, you almost had me murdered, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
This is her subject right now. This is what she ran on as far as making sure that we weren't going to have a wall, that we would treat our migrants with respect and dignity. We wouldn't put them in cages. So here Ted Cruz exposing her on her own freaking issue, and she refuses to call out the president and call out her own party. That's why she plays team sports, and she'll never play for the people. We need people who will play for the people who will not play team sports. In fact, we have a guest coming on today that is one of those people. But really quickly, Johnny, do you want to say something?
Well, Ted Cruz is using this for his political advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That goes,
Absolutely, but the numbers don't lie. And AOC should be going outraged at what Joe Biden has done since he's taken over.
And we can't really expect Ted Cruz to really work with AOC. I mean, she could be the bigger person in the whole thing, but it would just expose Ted Cruz, right?
Listen, if AOC was one to work with Ted Cruz once again on the situation,
well, y'all think Ted Cruz would work with her?
I don't know, but if he didn't, then
he would look like an asshole.
I don't think he would, but yeah, I mean, she should.
But he tried, right? Actually. He tried when it came to the Wall Street bets. Like, I don't believe he's genuine in a lot of this thing. But the point is, AOC could take what he's saying, his little game of weaponizing this for political gain, and be like, okay, let's solve this. Let's do something about these immigrants. She's not doing that. She could do that. That's the thing. I feel like somebody like a Tulsi Gabbard would be like, let's work together, let's find a solution.
Yeah.
But she won't do it. She will never do it, and it's because of her own personal thing. It's not because she thinks Ted Cruz won't work with her. It's because she doesn't want to work with Republicans. Period.
That's it.
And no matter what is convenient for people or for working people, no matter if it's about finding a solution, she just makes a theater of attacking him because that's her job now, is to attack Republicans and say Republicans did this, as her party is the one in charge, as the Biden administration is the one in charge, as the numbers of Joe Biden, the deportation numbers are much higher than they were under Trump. I mean, that is no lie. Are the Republicans weaponizing this? Of course they are. They don't want to find solutions. So show that. Say that, look, okay, fine. We're actually going to look for solutions. We're going to do something about it. Expose them. But they're not doing that. The Democrats aren't doing that because they also don't want a fucking solution. They want to continue this because they know they can't stop it as long as they continue their regime change, their imperialism, etc.
We're never talking about the problem. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And if in fact she wanted to work with him and say, hey, okay, well, let's talk about our foreign policy. Did you see my Instagram the other day? That's what leading to this. Let's start pulling out of those nations and stuff like that. But she'll never do that because she knows she has to hold her own party accountable, and that's not allowed. I'm just going to read the first quick paragraphs. It says Representative AOC, Democratic New York, told Senator Ted Cruz that his resignation is 84 days past due, as the two sparred over an influx of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. The encounter occurred on Twitter, where Ocasio-Cortez was explaining that she faced bipartisan opposition to improving the conditions at the U.S.-Mexico border. She called out Ted Cruz types who were taking trips to the border but had voted for policies that helped created the problem.
Which she's absolutely right about. I will say 100%. Ted Cruz has voted for these same policies that have created the problem. It is absolutely hypocritical of him to come and pretend he's some sort of he cares and he's trying to resolve this. But instead of going back and forth, like I said, she could up the game and be like, okay, well, since you're all of a sudden for solving the immigration crisis, let's do it, Ted. Let's do it together. That's not happening, right?
Can I say something too? I think a lot of the shit that's going down on the border is because what the Republicans have done, and the Democrats are calling their bluff. Democrats are still, and Joe Biden made it simple and clear.
You mean Democrats have done it and Republicans are calling their bluff?
No, Republicans have done something, and the Democrats are calling their bluff, but they're stuck in a position. When the Republicans go, there's open borders, people are coming across left and right, the Democrats are like, no, let's hold everybody here, let's not let the borders go open. You know what I'm saying? And that's why there's an influx, because they want a lot of those Republican votes. I think these establishment Democrats, like Joe Biden's like, I got these Republican votes. Believe it or not, I think there's a lot of people in this country who will say, well, at least he's not letting them in. They'll be saying that shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of disgusting. It's not a solution to the problem, but I think a lot of it has to do with them pointing it out. They want open borders. No, we don't. That's a bunch of malarkey. You know what I'm saying? So now what do they do? Yeah. Now we have an influx of a jam at the border where all these people are there, and who knows what we're gonna do.
But they're not like allowing people in like via open borders. So that's not what's happening.
I know, but that's what the Republicans say.
Yeah, that's what the Republicans say.
Even my Republican friends in Florida, now the borders are open. I'm like, that's not true. That's just not true. You know what I'm saying? What's happening now? There's actually a serious problem right now where they're not letting the people in. Now they're just jammed up, whatnot. And they didn't come here because Joe Biden became president. They came here because their country is still violent due to the regime change that we have kind of stood behind for so many years. Am I right? Am I wrong, fam?
No, 100%. And there is also like a racial element to this too. You do have to say, notice all the immigrants coming in and all the countries that we, try to resource extract from are the Middle East, the global South, and that is an element. I mean, you don't see, Canadians coming in because we extract their resources. You don't see like Europe suffering the same way that the global South is suffering. So there is that element there because imperialism itself is a mechanism that's it uses racism to weaponize to weaponize what they would normally do would be the extraction of resources. And so that's what's inevitably happened too. And somebody was talking about that. It is imperialism, but it's also rooted in this sort of ideology too, because you notice who is always on the short end of the stick, and that's something that I think we have to come to terms with as well. And it's just the whole practice itself. So when you're talking about fighting racism in America and you only care about like going or supporting Black Lives Matter or supporting a Democrat because you think they will be less racist than a Republican, well, both parties do support imperialism, which is inherently a racist practice. So if you don't care about children in the Middle East getting bombed, then you really aren't here for the actual truth of you're against it as a whole, not just when it suits your political narrative. And a lot of the progressives have to remember that too.
Yeah. Let's read Ted Cruz's tweet real quick. It's in the bottom of the article. Johnny, I'm going to do my best Ted Cruz voice right here. AOC explains the real Democratic position. Abolish ICE. Full open borders, which would make the Biden border crisis even worse. She says nothing else will work. Really? Last year, we had the lowest illegal immigration in 45 years. This year, we have the highest in 20 years. How's my Ted Cruz?
I don't know. I don't really listen to him.
Does that needs work?
Probably.
All right. But you could see what he said. What is his solution? And here we go again. Full open borders, fam. They always talk about that.
Yeah, which is it's not true.
And the establishment Democrats, though, they take the bait every time.
Right. And ICE.
Every time.
And the Democrats don't want to abolish ICE.
Nope.
They literally said no. But Joe Biden literally said, no, we will not do that. And I remember because I was there, one of his representatives reiterated that at a thing in, I think it was Iowa. And the fact is, ICE didn't exist before a certain time period, and everything was fine. ICE is a creation that is pretty recent. It didn't. Yeah. There was no. You can abolish ICE and still have, border control if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, there's no.
ICE has nothing to do with that.
We have to fix the actual root of the problem, and that's our foreign policy. AOC said it herself, Stans. Could you do your AOC impression and read this here?
Okay. I don't know if I can. Ted, this is pretty much rich, coming from someone who fled their own home and responsibilities during an environmental crisis to cross the border and seek refuge in Mexico. Also, you funded cages, expanded cages, and yet you're complaining about cages. You have no policy, just puff. I do have to say that is true about Ted Cruz. Like I said, he's being a hypocrite. But again, she could say that and then said, okay, Ted, let's find a solution. And it's just back and forth. And who wins out of this? We don't win. Yeah. Those people who are still in these cages of prisons, whatever you want to call them, don't win either, because nothing is getting fucking resolved.
Yep. And let's be honest. My bad. AOC is being hypocritical too as well. Of course, yeah. She was crying outside these facilities, and here we are now. Boom, you know. So let me read some super rays real quick, and then we'll get our guest on. We have an awesome guest today. A lot of happy people in the chat know who it is. They're going to be excited. Aeon says, Friday love from Dublin. Some people from Ireland in the chat. Cultist Demon, I'm just holding on to Ethereum for now. The gas fees to swap to Ray tokens is out of sight. They are getting better, though, Cultist Demon, and they are going to fix that. Gas fees become reasonable. I'm happy to buy some Ray, but it seems like it's just holding on to the ETH is best for now. Yes, if you do it at a higher price, it's the percentage is lower. WM, the hill is awful. We know. Sarah Wagoner, please ask Sawant if she will show solidarity for the International Day of Action for Julian Assange on April 11th. We will. Rock on, Sarah. And that's... I'm reading wrong chats here. My bad. We'll get to the rest of the chats later. That's all the chats. Let's bring on our guest over here, fam.
Okay, so obviously, guys, we have Councilwoman Kshama Sawant here to talk about this. Really, like, it's been months and months since this has been happening, but this attempt to recall her, and she is fighting the establishment. Kshama was somebody that started the Fight for 15 back years ago in Seattle, and has been really prominent in criticizing Amazon and actually joining in on some of the protests last year that took place after George Floyd was murdered. And it's been really kind of a historical thing, because Kshama belongs to the Socialist Alternative Party, and unlike in other types of government office, it's actually, when you run for city council, it is possible. We've had Greens here in city council. We have Green mayors. So when you are a candidate that isn't in the Democratic Party and you are part of the city council, it takes on a whole other heap of different things. You're going to be entirely opposed, entirely targeted by the establishment. And this is a story right now where the Washington State Supreme Court has allowed the recall campaign against Kshama Sawant to continue. So today we have Kshama here in the studio via, of course, internet, to talk about this situation and to ask her so many questions that her experience organizing is unprecedented. Thank you, Kshama, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so yeah, you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, we just heard news. There was breaking news that the Washington State Supreme Court is now allowing the recall campaign against you, Kshama. What are your initial thoughts, and what is your plan on what you're going to do?
Thank you for asking me about that. The ruling is from the State Supreme Court is completely unjust, but we are not surprised, because working people in oppressed communities know we cannot rely on capitalist courts for justice any more than we can on the police. And as you were just alluding to, many working people saw this firsthand last summer across the country as peaceful protests against racist police brutality were themselves met with brutal police violence. And while the police and the political establishment have not been held accountable, in stark contrast, more than 14,000 Black Lives Matter protesters were arrested. And I was one of those protesters. And it's no accident that 2 of the 3 charges upheld by the Supreme Court are about my participation in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. And ultimately, because we've used our office as a way to organize social movements. And, to see how stunning this ruling from the Supreme Court is, I think it's important to note that in October of last year, this same Washington State Supreme Court unanimously threw out the grassroots recall of Amazon's mayor, Seattle's mayor, but she's really Amazon's mayor, Democrat Jenny Durkan, who oversaw the vicious police crackdown against Seattle protesters. Now, among other dangerous weapons, Seattle police, just like Minneapolis and other cities, police under Durkan used tear gas during a respiratory pandemic. Tear gas inflames the lungs, burns the skin, and stings the eyes. Its use has the potential to increase the spread of coronavirus and to cause long-term harm in individuals with asthma and other respiratory conditions. Democratic establishments like Durkan's continued unleashing tear gas for weeks, despite repeated public pleas by medical and public health professionals to stop its use, especially during COVID. That was the charge from a grassroots recall campaign against this corporate mayor, which we supported. And yet this Supreme Court unanimously ruled that that recall's objection to the use of tear gas really represented a quote unquote political disagreement with Durkan and therefore did not have merit and summarily dismissed the case. Now that same Supreme Court has unanimously approved the recall against Seattle's only elected socialist because we held a masked 1 hour peaceful Black Lives Matter rally in an empty city hall. But really, the Supreme Court's reason for siding with the recall is highly political. It is an attack, not just on me, but on our office for unambiguously standing with BLM. And it's an attack on the movement as a whole. And I'll just say this, the stunning irony is that I was one of the thousands who was tear gassed by Durkan's police. So absolutely, we need an all-out fight back against this recall. We have to recognize that it is one of the worst attacks on the US left in decades. And everybody who is watching this, who considers themselves progressive, let alone socialist, has a stake in joining us in defeating this recall. So we are organizing citywide through a solidarity campaign against the recall, but we are also appealing for national and even international solidarity.
So do you intend to go to the Court of Appeals and appeal the decision?
We are talking to our attorney about that, but we cannot hold our breath that they will give us any justice because we know that's not going to come. They've already made it very clear, these Supreme Court judges, where they stand. And also we have to keep in mind that the recall law in Washington State itself, to begin with, is profoundly undemocratic, and it allows the unequal application of the law. It is well suited for retaliation against working people's representatives. And this law in this state, the recall law, does not require that the charges even be proven true. The truth does not matter, literally. And when I tell people this, people are stunned, like how can that be the case? But it truly is. The Washington State recall law does not require recall charges to be true. It just requires the charges to be stated, that if they were true, then they would be liable for recall, which is just an attack against working people's representatives.
Yeah. Well, City Councilwoman Sawant, you're one of the more popular political heads in Seattle. If it does go to a recall, are you confident that you will win and you'll be okay? Or do you have a little nervousness with what could happen with the election system there?
It's all of that. Throughout history and throughout our experience of 7.5 years in organizing and winning unheard of victories in Seattle, we have seen that neither victory nor defeat is ever guaranteed to social movements. It's all a question of how we fight back. So neither should we be demoralized, nor should we get complacent. There is no question that we have huge support, not only from our district and citywide, but also statewide and nationally. It is precisely because working people have been hungry for this kind of politics, politics that actually stands up for them, fights for them unrelentingly, which is what you need, and not a go along to get along politician who says all the right things for working people and then goes and sells out. And our city hall is full of those progressive Democrats who say all the right things, but are ready to sell out unless we have a fighting movement. Just this past Monday, I have to tell you, we won a really crucial victory where we forced a unanimous vote in City Hall to ensure that tenants facing eviction have the right to a lawyer. How incredibly important is this, as we head into a tsunami of evictions. But that was not guaranteed. I mean, the Seattle City Hall has 8 progressive Democrats, quote unquote, and 1 socialist. And yet, there was only 1 reliable vote for this mine. And then we had to fight tooth and nail against their opposition. And when they were exposed and they could no longer vote no, then they tried to insert insidious loopholes. So all of this took a fight.
Yeah. What does it mean, by the way, for Seattle with the unanimous vote to guarantee city residents the right to an attorney during eviction proceedings? What does that mean for Seattle? Because here in LA, of course, we are witnessing the same thing right now. Yesterday, we covered somebody who was evicted and is now living in their car. I mean, this situation is out of control. What does that mean for your residents?
You're so right. This is an unprecedented crisis that our people are facing in city after city, in metropolitan areas across the nation. So what you're describing for Los Angeles, that is exactly the situation we face in Seattle. It's an extremely wealthy city, but it's also extremely divided, where the wealthy have gotten wealthier and working people and the poor have found it difficult to even have a foothold in this city. And if you look at the statistics in Seattle, we see that 9 out of 10 evictions result in homelessness. So if you look at that stark statistical link between getting evicted and becoming homeless, you can see that having a lawyer is so crucial. And then you can see the statistics also of how eviction hearings go when you have a lawyer or when you don't have a lawyer. The ACLU's data shows that nationally, 90% of landlords have a lawyer when they go to court, to have tenants evicted, and 10% of tenants have lawyers with them. So having or not having a lawyer can be a make or break whether you get evicted or you get to keep a roof over your head as a tenant. And if you get to keep a roof over your head and ward off an eviction, it means you don't become homeless. And so given all those statistical links, it is a crucial thing. Just having a lawyer will be a preventer of homelessness. And that is why the next battleground that we are building for in my office, we've already released this legislation yesterday, actually, is a bill to make sure that families with school-age children and educators in the school district are not evicted during a school year. Because again, we see horrendous links between housing instability and the detrimental effects on student learning and mental health.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I would just think it's amazing that you're doing that. We've been talking about that you have like a 90% chance better to avoid eviction if you have a lawyer. Can you give us just a little bit of a take on the schematics of things, of how you're going to pull that off? Like, how are you going to provide everybody a chance, all the indigenous residents, a lawyer? I mean, how are you going to get that done? That seems like, how would they do that? Were they going to get volunteers to be lawyers to volunteer?
Because we could learn a lot to replicate that here in the city of Los Angeles. We're experiencing, we'll talk about, I'll ask you about that in a minute, but it's like the housing crisis has become 10 times worse with COVID and the pandemic. There are tents everywhere, and the city council here is actually evicting people from parks and doing raids instead of actually doing anything to help them.
You're totally right. And in fact, that's one of the most stunning things about an indictment on the capitalist system, that even during a pandemic moratorium on evictions, landlords are still issuing eviction notices. Evictions are happening. We just heard in our office this tragic story of a woman who was being foreclosed on. So it's both homeowners, working class homeowners, and working class renters who are going to start paying the price. And it's a repeat, unfortunately, of the Great Recession, unless we really fight to make sure that the cost of the recession and the pandemic is paid for by the billionaire class, by the corporate landlords, by big banks, and by big businesses, and not by working people, whether it's renters or homeowners. And so, in fact, the fight that culminated in Monday's victory, actually, we've been waging for over 3 years. And ever since I got elected in took office in 2014, we launched what has been called the People's Budget Movement, which is against this whole corporatized budget, and to ensure full funding of our needs. And of course, that is an ongoing fight. But through the People's Budget Movement as a vehicle, every year we have won victories that were considered impossible for working people to win. And one of the things we won 3 years ago was the first ever funding from the city, public revenues for a lawyer for tenants facing eviction. So, it really started there, where we forced the city through the People's Budget Movement to contract with this organization called the Housing Justice Project. The Housing Justice Project is trained attorneys who are truly dedicated. They're not there to make money. They're salaried individuals who are affiliated with the King County Bar Association, who work out of the King County Courthouse, and who represent tenants and who have experience representing tenants, and their success rate is incredible. So I have no doubt that there are attorneys like that in Los Angeles as well, who are willing to do this work for tenants. And the attorneys at the Housing Justice Project in Seattle and King County tell us that most private lawyers don't provide this service. It's lawyers who are dedicated to social service, to public service, who do that. And that's how we accomplish. So 3 years ago, we won the funding for one such attorney from the Housing Justice Project. The next year, we won more. Last year, we won even more. And then this year, we have made it a law. So the city has to fund these attorneys at the Housing Justice Project or some other organization, maybe in the future, who will provide these services for tenants.
Wow, that's impressive. And
I wonder what the budget is.
Yeah, we could really learn a lot from that. You mentioned that the progressive Democrats haven't been much help, as an understatement, right? But how has your experience been as a socialist in the city council compared to the stipulations of being tied to the Democratic Party?
I think that is a major part of the lessons that the left, especially the socialist left, should learn from our experience. This is for the collective experience and education. The lessons we have learned is that you absolutely have to be crystal clear when you get elected as a socialist or as a working class representative. Your job is not to merely advocate for progressive policies, which absolutely it's your job. Your job is not merely to vote the right way, which absolutely, hell yes, that is part of your job. But your job goes, your task as an elected representative for working people goes well beyond that. And that is to expose the way that the corporate political machinery works. And so that is the basis on which we were able to win $15 an hour. And part of what I mean by that, it's twofold. One is, first of all, understanding that your power as a working people's representative does not lie inside City Hall. So you don't win $15 an hour by endlessly making a good argument, showing data to the Democrats, saying, look, this will be a good thing for working people to do. Of course, we do that. But that's not where our power lies. Our power lies outside the halls of capitalist government and with the people. So one of the first things we did when we got into office, we meaning myself and activists, I speak plural because I want to make it crystal clear to people. It is not about me or my special qualities. It's about how we are willing to use our office as socialist alternative as an organ of collective struggle. And so as soon as we were elected, we launched what we call the 15 Now grassroots movement. This 15 Now movement organized, and it was a very highly democratically organized movement where the leadership of the movement, including myself, were directly accountable to thousands of people who got to vote, debate on and vote on key issues for the $15 minimum wage. We organized action conferences, neighborhood action groups. We organized marches and rallies on the street. We brought the people to City Hall. And that is how we converted a 1 vote for $15 into a 9 vote for $15. All these council members who had sworn against 15 were forced to vote yes because of the power of social movements. But it's not just rhetoric and hyperbole about movements. It's about actually understanding how we built that movement. And one of the key components of successful movement building is to make the leadership of movements, whether you're an elected council member or not, I don't care about that. If you're a leader of movements, you need to be held accountable by the people you claim to represent, whether you have a formal title or not. And so having a democratically organized movement is what helped us to overcome not only the opposition of the Democrats it also helped us to overcome the cautious instincts of pro-establishment, pro-democratic labor leaders who, I don't care where your heart lies. If you're not willing to fight for working people, then your heart is of no use to working people. You know what I mean? It's not good enough for you to get a decent paycheck and pension and vacation time if you're not willing to put yourself on the line to win the same things for tens of thousands, millions of working people in this rich country. So that's the kind of accountability we are talking about. And that only comes from having a movement where the rank and file of the movement are empowered to make sure that we demand this. And it is that kind of rank and file empowerment, that model that allowed us to win 15, because we had to overcome the cautious instincts of movement leaders and NGO leaders as well. And that is how we won the Amazon tax last year to fund social housing and the Green New Deal, once again, with a powerful movement that is democratically organized, where people directly vote on things. But also, it's about tactics. So both 15 Now and Amazon tax, we were able to win because we built a credible ballot initiative threat, telling city council, if you don't vote yes on this measure legislatively, we are going to take it to the voters directly. It was the threat of a credible ballot initiative that put the fear in big business and their political representatives in the Democratic Party, that forced them to vote yes. But they will hesitate to, they will be loath to admit this publicly, because how the Democratic Party functions is they will fight you against progressive policies every inch of the way. And then when they're forced to concede, they'll say, oh, we did this. We were going to do this anyway. We don't need a rabble-rousing socialist to tell us what to do. But big business are more honest sometimes. Your enemies sometimes give you the best compliments.
Right.
They made it very clear. It is the army of ordinary people that has come to City Hall that is forcing these changes in Seattle. And it is nothing special about Seattle. Such movements can be built everywhere.
Wow.
Wow. She forced the vote on this issue.
I know. And just that talk of saying, like, if you're not willing to fight for the people, get the hell out of the way. You walk the walk and talk the talk. Okay, so let's talk about the Democratic Party being unreliable. You said that in that tweet, talking about how Seattle cannot rely on the Democrats, even the progressive ones. So if we can't rely on the Democratic Party, is there a pathway for anti-imperialism and socialism electorally on the higher level, on the next level?
Yes, there is a pathway, but it's going to be difficult. And I think that is part of the crux of the debate on the US left right now is people are daunted by what it will take to actually go in an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist direction. And then they fall back on the idea of just putting all your eggs in the Democratic basket because otherwise it seems daunting. So what is the specific pathway? It absolutely is going to require us on the left, social movements, mass movements, the labor movement, for us to fight for a political organization of our own, a party for working people. We will need this because as long as we are tied to the Democratic establishment, it's not going to work. And I think, you mentioned force the vote. I think that is a very crucial component of this discussion because, I mean, first of all, we have to recognize, of course, that hundreds of socialist left elected representatives being elected around the nation, that's a positive phenomenon. It's a reflection of the sign of the times. It's a reflection that people are ready for something different. So overall, the election of the squad Congress members is a very positive thing. However, that can't be, we cannot say, oh, we did this, we elected AOC, and now we should not criticize AOC, and this is where the buck stops. We cannot have that because what we are seeing unfold, and this is a big part of political education nationally on the left, is we're seeing that the strategy of being left and tweeting the correct things about Medicare for all and criticizing Republicans and voting the right way yourself, that is not going to cut it. This is not going to get the job done if we want to win a federal $15 minimum wage, if we want to win Medicare for all, if we want to tax Wall Street to fund university education and cancel student debt. None of these major reforms are going to be won on the basis of that strategy, let alone deeper fundamental change away from capitalism that's going to be needed to fight the climate catastrophe. And so during the stimulus bill, a big debate that came up, and I think it was more clarifying, because at first there was a section of the left that wanted to reject the force the vote tactic for Medicare for all, but then they saw and this is important, what we saw happening during the stimulus vote is that, wait a second, this debate is going to happen again and again and again. What will it take for us to have a militant elected representative or more in Congress who will absolutely hold the line? That's the question that was raised. And so many of us, including Socialist Alternative and I, we were really advocating for the squad members to withhold their vote from the stimulus bill until 15 was put back in the stimulus bill. Now that's the kind of fighting tactic that you will need, and it will not just be about 15. When the force the vote debate happened, everybody said, including AOC. AOC famously tweeted about this, sort of condescending to saying that this is not where the battle lies. Let's go for winnable things like $15 an hour. Well, then what happened to $15 an hour?
Yeah.
Then again, So what my point is, it's not about questioning intentions of the squad. I think they are extremely well intentioned. The point is, what is the strategy that actually works? And that strategy that actually works will require them to be in the face of the Democratic establishment. It is not going to work by tweeting and voting the right way. As long as you're going to put your faith in Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, as long as you're not willing to go against them, it is not going to work. But going against them is, again, it's not just to create some individual drama in the halls of Congress. What we were saying is that they should withhold their vote until 15 is put back in the stimulus bill, and then turn to the people, organize mass rallies and conferences. For example, what a specific thing that I was arguing for is that the squad should call for mass rallies in West Virginia and Arizona. You want to talk about Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin? Well, let them face the wrath of their own people. Joe Manchin goes to the mat for big business. We have to go to the mat for our people. And there is plenty of people in West Virginia, in Georgia, in Arizona, who want to fight for $15 an hour, who want to fight for Medicare for all. Black, white, Latino can be united in this struggle. But that's not going to happen unless our leaders are willing to use their positions to mobilize that action.
One of the frustrations of the progressive left, or the socialists, or us in general, is that the squad has failed to use their popularity. People like AOC, she has 12.5 million or more followers on Twitter. One of the things we were calling for is a rally or a protest, a sit-in, a demand on the ground, because that is what is going to be seemingly required to force the politicians to anything. You actually are able to do both. You don't just push things electorally. You actually go out there and get the people out in the streets to fight that. What can we do to get more of these people in Congress to emulate what you do? And what, it's not about you. I 100% agree, but it's about leadership and taking the initiative to say, hey, we have a large following on social media. People look up to us. Why don't we go out there, march in the streets and form a protest to get $15, to get healthcare during a pandemic? It would have seemed like the perfect time to demand such things.
Absolutely. There was no better time to actually, for example, push for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic, when people have seen just the unspeakable failure of capitalism to save lives. Literally people have died because we did not have protections. And so I totally agree with you. There is no better time than now. And as far as, what can we do to begin this kind of action? I think it has to begin with many of us on the left who agree that this needs to be done, and whether we have elected office or not, we have to play that leadership role. And I totally agree with you that it does come down to, it is not about individuals, but it does come down to leadership. I don't actually, you will never catch me saying things like leadership does not matter or that movements are spontaneous. Yes, the anger is not something we create. Like the desire for $15 an hour is not something that I manufactured or Socialist Alternative manufactured. The anger against capitalism is there because that's the lived reality of people. That's why 26 million people came out in the Black Lives Matter protest. But we have to do a sober assessment. And those of us who take politics and and the need for fundamental change seriously, we have to be sober about, for example, what are the concrete achievements of our Black Lives Matter movement. All of us marched on the streets, but what was lacking is a clear leadership that can provide the way forward, and that leadership has to come from us. If it's not coming from prominent people, then we have to fight for that leadership. And actually, the conversation like this is part of building that leadership, because there are so hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people out there who will agree with us. I mean, just to give you a concrete example that is not from Seattle, is we know that just 3 years ago, the teachers in West Virginia won a historic victory by carrying out phenomenal strike action in a right to work state, in a Republican and right-wing dominated state. And the way they did that was precisely the kind of approach that Socialist Alternative has used here, which is that understanding that rank and file leaders of individual sort of branches of their union had the responsibility to stand up for other teachers and for the community, for students, for children, by pushing back against any deal that they didn't agree with from the union leadership. And so we saw that rally where the statewide union leader is announcing this deal that they had made with the Republican legislature, and he was booed by the rank and file of the teachers union. And the rank and file leaders decided to continue the strike action. They defied that higher leadership and they carried this out. So that's the kind of defiance and militancy we're going to need in our social movements, whether it is Black Lives Matter or Medicare for All. We will need that inside the labor movement as well. And so, obviously all eyes are on Bessemer, Alabama, where workers are fighting for their first unionizing battle in an Amazon warehouse. And obviously we have to do everything in our power when as their vote goes through. And we hope for a good result, but whether the union is a yes vote or a no vote right now, the point is that the fight back needs to continue. And so the kind of leadership we have shown in Seattle, we will need on a much bigger scale. And I'll tell you something, I completely reject this false dichotomy that some people who support the Democratic Party have, that, well, you did it in Seattle, but you can't do this in Congress, you can't do this in the labor movement. No, absolutely. Not only can we do, we have to, otherwise we are doomed. How are we going to fight the climate catastrophe and save the planet unless we take pride in building a militant struggle? We have no choice but to do that. We have to. And people who feel that this is too daunting, well, yes, it is daunting, but one, it is worth fighting for. And second, if you keep going back to the Democratic Party, we know that strategy doesn't work. That's insanity. Trying something that has shown a result and then expecting a different result.
Yeah. Well, you've said throughout this interview today what the left needs to do, you're a socialist and stuff. There are a lot of conservative people on the right who are poor working class people. How do we make a bridge to those people to get over and join our fight if we're so concentrated, though, on just saying the left? Because I think there's a lot of solidarity there and a lot of people who are suffering too with their working conditions that might join us in this fight.
That is a spot on question. I'm so glad you asked. And when I say the left, I don't necessarily mean to exclude those people. In fact, the whole point is to, and the only way to build a strong left and a militant movement, whether it's in labor or on the streets, is by actually building working class solidarity. And this is a serious question. The question you asked is a serious question for the left, because one, we're not going to build the kind of mass movements we need without really winning over a lot of the people who are not part of movements already. And furthermore, while Trump was correctly repudiated, I mean that the vote against Trump, defeating Trump in the election, was a strong repudiation by American people to his reactionary anti-worker agenda. But Trumpism hasn't gone anywhere. Right populism, the danger of right populism remains as long as we don't have a challenge to corporate politics. So in other words, as long as the left doesn't build a mighty struggle nationwide, it will be left to, the vacuum will be left for right populist forces to take ground. And that will be very, very dangerous. We've already seen through the Trump era what happened. And so a serious question for the left is, over 70 million people voted for Donald Trump, unless we're going to have a ludicrous position that they are all irredeemable reactionaries, which they are not, then we need a strategy of winning them over. Yeah. And I think we saw a glimpse of that through the response to Bernie Sanders, both in 2016 and in 2020. I mean, here is the United States. It's the belly of the capitalist beast. And you have a self-described socialist, and Americans can't get enough of him. It's tens of millions of people who voted for Trump would have voted for Bernie Sanders because they are energized by the idea of a political revolution against the billionaire class. So in other words, I think we have to be clear where we have to, on the left, among socialists in our labor movement, we have to not only have a clear position against racism and sexism and xenophobia and bigotry, we have to take up the demands that are related to oppression. We have to fight for Black liberation. And at the same time, understand that there are tens of millions of Americans who could be won over, who haven't been reached out to. And that is why we have to take the fight. The fight cannot just be in Seattle and Los Angeles and Boston and New York. The fight has to go to Kentucky and Alabama and Arkansas and Mississippi, where we know there are people, as you were correctly saying, people will be open to this kind of fight back, but we have to build working class solidarity. And that is why we have to understand that at the same time, the dangers posed by identity politics, we have to go beyond that and make sure that we have working class solidarity.
Just to wrap up, one of the things that wasn't around during Marx's time was the big tech, was like Silicon Valley, was the either the censorship or the mass power that companies like Google, Alphabet have overreached on people. How do we deal with leftist movements or anti-imperialist movements with this added condition of the internet and of the big tech?
I think we have to first of all, recognize that in every era of revolt under capitalism, the technologies will be different. So you're absolutely correct in everything you described. But fundamentally, I would say what hasn't changed is the fact that whenever there is an era of revolt, there is also equal and opposite reaction. So there will be reactionary forces because the forces of the state are going to try and crush any kind of resistance against the status quo. And so I would say that while all of this is, as you said, is stacked up against us, we also what we have is a historic moment where, like never before in our lifetimes, tens of millions of people are ready to actually get organized. The faith in capitalism has never been as low as it is today. And even in this country, which is, as I said, it's a bastion of global capitalism, the entire generations of young people are disenchanted from the status quo. They see the failures of the system and they want to fight for something better. So I think on balance, I would draw a very optimistic view of this. But as I said before, nothing is guaranteed. That's why we have to fight for the correct kind of ideas. And I think part of pushing back against the forces that are arrayed against us, as you mentioned, in terms of the mass power of corporations like Google and other tech corporations, is precisely what is going on in Bessemer, Alabama. That is the organizing of gig economy workers into a militant labor movement. So not only do we need to fight for the unionization, for example, of every Amazon warehouse in the nation, that needs to be our collective goal. We all have a stake in making that happen. And in fact, that is precisely why members of Socialist Alternative are on the ground in Bessemer, Alabama. They've been there for weeks, helping to alongside the union and the workers to make sure that we have the best result possible. But our members in New York, to be honest, are also discussing with hundreds of JFK8, the Staten Island Amazon warehouse. Mm-hmm. We need that kind of solidarity where whether you yourself are a gig economy worker or not, we should be building bridges of unity with workers everywhere. Tech workers in Amazon have to be in solidarity and have been in solidarity with the Amazon warehouse workers and custodial workers and cafeteria workers. and the security officers. All of these are workers who are exploited by capitalism. And so a unionizing struggle around the nation is definitely has to be part of the answer to the kind of forces that are against us. But it's not just, this is one last thing I'll say, it's not just unionizing though. What we have to do is to usher in an era which is like the proud militant American labor movement from the past, and reject what has dominated in the labor movement for decades, which is business unionist ideas, where the leadership of the unions is having meetings with the establishment, and then at the end of the day we have massive setbacks for union members, and also the union density has gone down. So we need a pushback against that. We need a rank and file revival of the militant labor movement.
Really quickly, Councilwoman Sawant, that was my question. Should Joe Biden drop the charges and free Julian Assange?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So thank you, Kshama. That was great. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. We will, we're always talking about labor movements. Would you would you ever run for another office, and what's on your radar, and where can people find you to help you out?
Yes, I will just say that what we do in the future absolutely needs to be part of a nationwide conversation and struggle against capitalism, and a fight back on all these concrete demands that we just talked about, whether it's unionizing or Medicare for all of 15. But whether I personally will run or not, I think that is, again, a political question, both for Socialist Alternative and the larger movement that we are rooted in. In fact, that is why what we have accomplished is such an important part of the political education, I think, for millions, because when we launched the campaign in Socialist Alternative, it was not that I woke up one day and said, I want to run for office, let's build. I was just a member of Socialist Alternative, and I still am. It's an organization that is accountable to its rank and file. And so what we did was together have a democratic discussion and debate about, should we run a campaign, what the campaign's platform should be, should we emphasize $15 an hour? That was one of the key questions that was discussed. Who the candidate should be is also a democratic question. We want a pushback against this cult of personality politics, where it's all about this one person and then you can't criticize them and all. Nobody is about criticism. It is about actually seriously taking the fight for a different kind of future for our people and our planet. And it is in that spirit that I pledged during the campaign, and I'm carrying this out, that I take home only the average worker's wage, and the rest of my six-figure salary after taxes goes into a solidarity fund. And part of that fund is now being used to help the Bessemer struggle for unionizing in Alabama. And right now, defeating the recall is top priority for all progressives nationwide, one of the top priorities, nationwide. And it's no surprise that they're trying to undo the election victory we had in 2019 here. Bezos and Amazon are trying to, undermine the union election in Bessemer. So, you can see that everywhere there's a reaction against working people rising up. So please go to kshamasolidarity.org, which is my first name, KSHAMA, solidarity, all one word, .org, and donate, because obviously billionaires are not donating to our campaign. Billionaires are busy donating to the recall. So we need working people to stand with us, and we need endorsements from labor and social movement leaders from around the country.
Yeah. Convo Couch has your back. I love what you said. They got to take it to the mat. Kshama Sawant, amazing guest.
Kshama, thank you.
Sawant, I'm so sorry.
Kshama, thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate it.
And good luck.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, and likewise, solidarity.
Thank you.
Guys, that was awesome. That was an awesome interview.
I was tingling. Like I was when she was like, no, she's like, how dare these politicians? They got a good salary, they got good health care. They're not going to take it
in
to
the most
mat.
polite way possible too.
Wow.
It was just great.
Wow. And she walks the walk. She gets out in the street, ladies and gentlemen. And I know you loved it when she said, I think our power exists in the streets when we get out there. I was like, fam must be going crazy right now.
And I would even go further to say that's the only place where our power exists. I mean, in order to get the electoral victory she has gotten done through city council. She's been out in the streets. That's my point. Not she has led people to be out in the streets. That is a clear point she made, that it's not about her, and it's not. Any other city council person or congressperson could do this if they wanted to. People are ready, like she says, to go out in the streets. They need leadership. They need guidance. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, hey, like, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you start this? It's like, because people look for leaders. People look for somebody to follow. People aren't ready to do it on themselves. They kind of need like a push and an incentive. And if somebody in a position of power doesn't do that, then what are you doing? Because the whole point right now is to use what the failure of the system to actually show that and say, look at all these people. Just like what happened in Echo Park, just like what happened with all these people showing up that day and saying, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. That attracted a lot of media. It attracted a lot of attention. And now, guess who? Mitch O'Farrell looks like an asshole. And so do all these city council people that instead of doing what Kshama's doing, see, imagine if we had her here. Imagine what would have happened. And it's not, like I said, it's not about her. It is about these politicians not doing it. And they're all, guess what? All of our people in city council right now are tied to the Democratic Party, which is tied to the real estate developers, which is tied to all of these people who are wealthy and they invest in property here, because it's all about property and real estate in LA. Let's face it. Yeah. And so they see an eyesore. They look at the park and they look at it as an eyesore. They're like, well, we just want to fix it. And so that's why they put a giant fence around it, because they're saying, oh, it needs to be fixed. No, they just don't want these homeless people there. They want to push them out into Skid Row and to somewhere else.
They use things like, well, you're going to see needles laying around, people having sex out in the middle of public where our children are walking and all that stuff. And that wasn't the case there. They were very clean. They kept it organized.
The community was majorly in favor of them being there.
Especially during the pandemic.
They brought their kids. They had a community garden. They had art. They were trying to help themselves through mutual aid because the city wasn't helping them. And that doesn't even work. That didn't even work. So there's a lot to be learned from the movements that have happened because of one socialist being in the city council and actually not just being a socialist in name, but actually doing the things for workers, because that's all that it means. Like, who was it that said if you reject socialism? Was it
Fred Hampton? If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself.
Yeah, because it's like it's about people. You call it whatever it is you want if that word makes you uncomfortable, but it's about working people and putting working people first. And right now, nobody is putting working people first. And I love that you asked that question, because it's like, that's an important question, she said, because it's like you have to be able to reach out to these people and in any way, shape, or form. You can't just say that all these millions of people who voted for Trump are just that's it, that they're all racist and you can't talk to them. No, you have to go and reach these people. And one of the things she mentioned was West Virginia, because West Virginia is a place where Joe Manchin is the Democratic leadership, but Bernie Sanders won West Virginia in the primary in 2016, and the moment that Hillary Clinton became the nominee, all of them voted for Donald Trump. That goes to show you that if you have a working people's platform, you could win over people. But the problem is that the Democratic Party stands in the way of allowing that to happen, that bridge between the working class people who may be Republicans, but who literally have issues, the same issues that somebody, say, on the left is trying to solve. Because if you have candidates that are like Hillary Clinton, nobody's going to buy that. These people are going to end up voting for Trump.
She also had that tagline that I think we should make a T-shirt. Take it to the mat.
Take it to the mat. I love
Kshama Sawant. I
Ben
remember
Askren would wear that.
What's that?
Yeah, Ben Askren would wear
Take it to the mat. Oh my God, yeah. Well, he might not politically, but he'll make it. He would wear that. He wants to take Paul to the mat, but he can't. Unfortunately, it's a boxing match. But Cultist Demon, I'm really sorry we didn't get to ask that question in its entirety. I hope we got enough of what you said. I wanted to ask even more questions. I wanted to ask her about crypto. Yeah. I wanted to ask her if she did run, how her foreign policy, which we have questions. But once again, it doesn't come into play right now as a city council member. She's doing the most important thing, and that's working class solidarity, and that's what needs to be done. We should emulate what she's been doing in Seattle across the board.
7 years ago is when they fought for 15 in Seattle. 7 years ago.
They got it.
2015 is when they got it. 2015, that's 6 years ago. And it's crazy that the squad didn't do that. I mean, she forced a vote on that, and they couldn't do that in Congress. I mean, guys, come on. This is why you can criticize them. Nobody is above criticism. That's another thing. The celebrity culture that you mentioned, it's entirely true. These are things that I've been saying here for God knows how long.
I was gonna be like, Kshama, you don't watch the Convo Couch, right? We've been saying all this shit.
Yeah.
Also, the thing I really like was that she said she fucking she takes the average salary, and then the rest of her salary goes to a fund.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
solidarity fund.
How
that's
many
walking the walk.
How many Democrats would do that?
walk.
How many progressive Democrats would do that? I want to show of hands. Let's see. Are you guys
AOC do that?
Are you guys willing to take a salary cut? And AOC makes a lot more money, by the way, because she's a congresswoman and they get paid a lot more.
Yeah.
So
let's get some super rays and get into talking about AOC some more, because we need to do that. So Carrie Mark joined us. Love the Convo Couch. Rokfin. Love Convo Couch. Rokfin is what she's saying. Carrie Mark, we love you. You've always been a great supporter. Thank you for all you do. Aeon.
thank you, Carrie.
Aeon. It says Friday love from Dublin. Patrick S. He gave some love. Robbie. The Gone Girl is here.
Yay.
How you doing? Shama is the real deal. I said Kshama like a donkey. No wonder they are going after her. What a great leader for the working
The white
class.
man would.
I know. Unlike others who like to tweet, but organizing not so much. It seems it's a local level where things are at. Keep punching up.
It
yes,
is. It has
so many
to
things can be done on the
bottom up.
local level. We have a great city council member in Santa Monica. We've met him before at the Bernie meeting. I forgot his name, but the things he fought for too over there as well, just great. And he said you could do so much help on a local level that you wouldn't even believe it. So encourage people to run for what they call the bench, right?
Organizers, yeah, like we know Melissa. We need people like that to run. People that are no bullshit, aren't gonna flip out, aren't gonna, because that's what it is. Like they get in there and they turn, and that's what always happens. And thank you. I wanted to say, Patrick S, thank you from Dublin. We want to go to Dublin, fam. So when we go there, we'll say hi.
When somebody gets their shit together and gets their papers, maybe
fam,
we can
really
go.
quick, Socialist Alternative is different than DSA, right?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
They're
Somebody in the
actually
chat saying
socialist.
that
Oh yeah. So Socialist Alternative.
That Kshama was DSA or something.
No, she's not. She I think she joined or is supporting a chapter or something like that. Because remember, all the DSA chapters are different. Yeah. And DSA, the organization,
maybe DSA
right. I think DSA Seattle is probably different. I mean, I'm not gonna say that, but it depends on the people. Like, we know our friend from DSA who is very critical of the leadership. That's, again, she also mentioned something important that nobody mentions that we always talk about here. The union leadership is a problem because they tend to sit with the establishment. There's a lot of unions in LA, but a lot of them vote establishment Democrat because they form this sort of tie instead of siding with the workers. And that's one of the problems that you have. It's not just about making unions. It's about holding that leadership that's corrupt too, because otherwise you end up people hating unions because they're like, well, they're corrupt too.
We don't need unions nowadays. We needed them back then. We don't need them now. Where do you come up with that shit? Did Laura Ingram tell you that shit? At BX Commie, thank you so much. Listening to Kshama speak invokes emotion. Surely did. I was tingling when she was saying those things. She understands the power of leverage.
Yes.
And that the only way we will achieve wins for the working class is through a very public and nasty battle with the Democratic establishment. She said militant. Take it to the mat. How dare you not take it to the mat when you're sitting there on the funds and you have the money and the comfort and the health care that the people who put you in office don't have. Take it to the mat. I love it.
Militant is a very, the fact that she says that word, it's a very, it's a strong word.
Teeny, thank you for the super ray. We need to stop saying I am this and I am that. All we need to know is that we are all the 99%. I'm going to let you read that because there's some Spanish over there.
Oh, God.
Because I'm not going to butcher it.
Okay. Oh, come on. This is a chant. How do you know?
Say.
El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. O pueblo unido jamás será vencido. That's Portuguese. The people united can never be divided.
Thank
you for all you do, fam.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's
chant.
awesome, guys. Thank you so much, guys, on the YouTubes. Get on over to the Rokfin, ROKFIN. You can see it up there. Join, sign up for free. And if you got a couple extra bucks, endorse the Convo Couch for $9.99 a month. It really helps us out. And it's the Rokfin revolution where they let you say what you want and don't censor our voices like YouTube.
And if you want to give a chat, you can go to the Streamlabs or a PayPal, and we will read your question in your chat. So that's always available for you guys to do since YouTube has demonetized us, of course.
Do we have one thumb down on Rokfin today? The other day we had 99 up and 0 down. What's going on? Who's the one trolling here?
Fam, we have so many.
55 watching. Thank you guys so much. Let's talk about this too, because this is important as well.
Yeah.
Remember when we started this whole battle in 2016? It was against the media. It was against the elite. It was about income inequality. It was about getting Medicare for all those fights. But the media was known when Bernie Sanders, in the beginning of the 2016 campaign, stopped and fenced off with a reporter and said, are you covering the things that you need to cover, what's going on out there? Are you letting the people know how people are living in poverty? Are you letting the people know what's going on in the working conditions? Are you covering those things? No, you're not. And we recognized right off the bat that the mainstream media was one of the biggest problems out there. Well, fam, your friend AOC has now become a regular on Rachel Russiagate Maddow. And also, I don't know who praises Joe Biden more. Is it AOC or Emma Vigeland? You tell me. It's become totally disgusting. So here they are. Watch the uncomfortableness of this too as well. And now she's developed what I call the Kamala laugh.
Video courtesy of a case study QB. So
here we go.
Now is one of the most influential members of that body. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Congresswoman, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for making time to be here tonight.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So, as I know, you saw the president's speech today, and we've all been reading about and learning about what the president is asking for in this American Jobs Plan. What do you think of it?
I think that the vision that President Biden and the administration has laid out, you're right, has surprised a lot of us in a positive way. And in the detail and the thought that's here, the scope of it is really encouraging, except I think the how, that 2.2 trillion, 2.25 over 8 years, I have serious concerns that it's not enough to realize the very inspiring vision that Biden has advanced. And so I believe that those of us here, especially as progressives within the Democratic Party, we know that there is so much more opportunity here. And in order for us to realize this inspiring vision, we need to go way higher. And that's what's going to help us actually deliver on this really promising and inspiring vision that the president has laid out today.
Okay.
Phony.
Okay.
Because she's going to say this shit. But what is she going to do? Is she going to take to the streets like Kshama and say, let's get this done? She's become a master at duping the people and to think that she's a fighter for wanting more and stuff like that. And the whole behavior thing and the way she acts now, she's just become so phony right now. It's nauseating.
I'm not even going to look at that because I feel like people are going to say that's, sexist and all of that. I don't care about her mannerisms or whatever. Okay. Let's talk about the substance of what she said. She is calling Joe Biden's policies that he is pushing right now inspiring. That is absolutely a lie. There is nothing inspiring. It's in fact the opposite. It is the complete opposite of inspiring. Joe Biden is the administration is doing PR turns all over the place because they're trying to figure out how they're going to cover their ass because they've been exposed by people like Ted Cruz and other mainstream media that actually got into these facilities that you call them the same type of cages, right? Where these people are being kept in ridiculous conditions. If you're going to talk about COVID being a massive danger, well, you can't have hundreds of people in a place where there should only be a dozen. Like, that's what's happening. What is inspiring about that? What is inspiring about Joe Biden walking back on student loan debt in the middle of an economic crisis to a population, a generation of millennials that is heavily so in debt that they can't buy homes, that they're not having kids, all of these things? How is that inspiring? How is it inspiring that Joe Biden in his first few days bombed Syria? And she still hasn't said a goddamn word about it, by the way. She hasn't talked about that foreign policy aspect. What is inspiring about Joe Biden not giving people health care during a pandemic? What is inspiring about Joe Biden walking back from the initial $2,000 he and the Democratic Party campaigned on and giving people $600 less? Okay, and taking 4 months to actually make it happen. He is doing unraveling so much of what he campaigned on, and so is she. She got elected to push Medicare for all against the Democratic Party. She wasn't elected because she was going to be a status quo politician. She was elected because she was going to push Medicare for all, not just wear it on her mask. She was elected because she was going to push student loan debt. She was elected because she was going to put a $15 minimum wage, and they backed off that even. It's like 8 years ago, 7 years ago, Kshama was talking about a $15 minimum wage, and now 7 years later, Congress can't even force a vote on that. Come on.
But that's what this is about, fam. This is the kabuki theater. Let's move the conversation away from all the failed policies that they didn't get across, from all the failure to push the policies that we need for working class solidarity, and let's talk about infrastructure. And now it's going to be a huge, gigantic bill filled with pork, which the Republicans are not going to vote for. So then they're going to use that to say, look at the Republicans bad. They don't even want to come together on infrastructure. The fight will go there. And when we be distracted from the fact that we didn't get Medicare for all in a pandemic, that we didn't get the $15 an hour that we were promised, that what's going on in Ukraine right now, the Biden administration, all the same people
you're not
who
gonna
forced
hear
the
about
coup are back in power. The Victoria Nulands, the Blinkens, and everybody else, the Sullivans, they're going to be back in there. We're already looking at war right now in Ukraine. It's so dangerous because Eastern Europeans are Russian, in fact. So all of this right now is just more kabuki theater, and then she gives herself an out to say, well, we need to do more. We needed more and whatnot and stuff like that. Well, you're not going to get in the streets and fight for more. You're not going to go out in the streets and fight for a real infrastructure bill that will give people jobs to go and do this. You're just going to be part of the kabuki theater, and now you're going on who? Rachel Maddow to go out there and push your guff.
Right.
By the way, I love this picture right here where Johnny stopped it. Can you at least, I don't mean to demean them, but look at this right over here. This is just, there you go. Look at that.
It's just, I just want to say, like, if you go on Rachel Maddow to talk about, to say the words that somebody like Kshama is saying and say, we need to be militant. We need to go on the streets. Let's form a protest. Rachel Maddow won't invite you back, but guess what? You will have the impact and people will be like, yeah, AOC, let's do it. Because people are desperate right now. Just because we're reopening doesn't mean that people's economic issues are going away. People are getting evicted. People are like, the jobs that they get, they're still behind in debt now from all the bills that they didn't pay. There's all these things that are happening in this giant tsunami that's coming. And so she could go on Rachel Maddow. She could go on Fox. She could go on anywhere. I don't give a shit where she goes on. But she could be talking about how we take this to the streets and we take this fight to the streets. I have been begging AOC. I have been asking AOC, prove me wrong. When are you going to go out and fight in the streets like we need you to do? We need you to do what city council members are doing. We need you to do that. We need you to stand with the people right now. This is a time for a movement. But the problem is none of these people are doing that. Not AOC, not the squad, not Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders did at the very least go and join people in Bessemer, Alabama, but why is she can't even do that. She can't even do that. I mean, this is where she's busy fighting on Twitter with Ted Cruz, fighting Republicans who we know are bad. You don't have to convince me to not like Ted Cruz. That's irrelevant to me. Ted Cruz didn't promise Medicare for all. I don't understand why it's so difficult to do this. Like, if you have to step out from Congress and say, you know what, I'm just going to do this for a minute. I'm going to join this protest, not for a photo op, but for actually doing it and actually then saying, I'm going to push this legislation with the people behind me. That's what we need right now.
Johnny almost jumped out of his seat when Kshama said that stuff. Like, what they should be doing is calling press conferences and then getting people out in the streets to fight for this stuff. Because I know Johnny was going to say she's got 5 million viewers following her on Twitter, right? Like, how many does she have on Twitter?
12.5 or more now.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous. Well, just get those bodies in the streets. She has so much power if she wanted to, but instead she decided to sell out, capitulate to the establishment, and here she is again, ladies and gentlemen, a regular on Rachel Maddow, which, by the way, what's that?
12.6 million.
I mean, come on. You can get bodies in the streets, fam. You can get bodies in the streets. Why doesn't she do it?
If she got less than 10%,
Fraud squad.
she got 5%, 1% of the people in the streets, 1% of her followers in the streets. I swear to God, like the movements that could be started. And that is, I expect, what, celebrities have way more followers, but celebrities aren't governing. Celebrities aren't legislating laws. She is a celebrity and a politician because this country likes to make celebrities out of politicians. So fine, then use that platform to do what needs to be done.
You hear that? That's crickets. And that's what AOC and the squad have got you. Crickets. Nothing. Zip, zilch. I love the fact that Kshama pointed out the fact that we should have got Medicare for all in the middle of the pandemic, but she said, oh, well, we got to fight for something we can get, and it's $15 an hour. Where's it at?
And they voted for Pelosi for nothing. And then the
Nothing.
Democrats,
What did they get out of it?
The Democrats didn't need to vote to water down the benefits either, because Republicans didn't need the vote.
Yeah. And if they get nothing, that really means that you get nothing because they weren't willing to take it to the mat. Johnny, anything else? So that was that over there. We have a story to talk about. We went out to the streets real quick. Let me take a look. We have 300 people on the YouTubes. We have more people joining in, 56 on the Rokfin. Come on, let's get that up. David Guevara, how you doing? Thank you for having Kshama Sawant on. She is genuine. She's awesome. You know, and like I said, there were so many things more I want to talk about.
Yeah.
If she does run for another office, a little higher office, we obviously want to talk foreign policy. I'd love to talk about crypto with her. But really, to tell you the truth, I was tingling when she was speaking. And she says, how dare you, when she was talking about politicians that we stood behind, how dare you not be willing to take it to the mat for the people and fight for them? When you make that salary, when you get that health care, when you get those benefits, you're going to just turn and capitulate? Oh, no. So I wish her nothing but the best of luck. Fam, she did talk about the situation and what's going on with Seattle. Seattle has now made it law that people get an attorney, indigenous people, for they're fighting their evictions. We know, we've talked about this, Johnny. We've talked to our people out here with Elena Pop and the Eviction Defense Network and stuff. When you have a lawyer, your chances increase by like 900% of avoiding eviction than if you go in there by yourself. It's like something ridiculous if you have a lawyer. Now they're providing lawyers for the people. Everybody has a right to a lawyer. I don't mean that's socialism, fam. I don't give a shit. That's for working class solidarity. That's to help people not get evicted from the houses.
Yeah. Lawyers are expensive, guys. And if you can't afford one, they're just, for if you're defending yourself from a criminal or you are appointed one. But if not, if you're literally being evicted, you have to go out and find a lawyer or find somebody that will do it pro bono. We have great people here doing work, but even they can't keep up with the amount of evictions coming. They literally they're trying really hard, but it's like one thing after the other. There's so much going on. They're incredibly busy, and that's what what's happening here. Very similar to Seattle. The difference is in Seattle they have Kshama Sawant and they have other activists that are willing to stand with her and take this fight to the streets, whereas here it's like we have a lot of activists, but they have no power, and we don't have any friends in city council, really. We really don't. And it's crazy because California is supposed to be the most progressive state. And so what's happening here is, what we covered last week or the week before was the
Echo Park.
The Echo Park raid where, they pushed out all these tents that were there and all these people that were building a community. Well, now we show you the other side of how these people become unhoused. Well, this is precisely how these people become unhoused. What happened to this woman is that she got evicted yesterday. Yeah. And so Alex Villanueva reportedly refuses to stop evictions. This is despite there being a CDC moratorium that says that they must stop evictions because according to the CDC, if you evict people, that increases the likelihood of COVID and COVID spread. So the lawyers are using that to say you need to stop evicting people, right? And so in spite of these regulations, he is allowing this to happen. And the reason I say he is because the sheriff's department and the sheriffs are the ones that go and give people notice to evict them. And if they don't leave, then they force them out. That is on the sheriff to do that. Now, people are still getting evicted, and protesters, of course, are fighting back.
I wanted to say something really quickly. Number one, and we will get into this a little bit deeper, it's the sheriff has the right to allocate his resources as he sees fit.
Right.
So he doesn't have to allocate his resources to evicting people from their houses.
Right.
He can allocate resources elsewhere, especially in the middle of the pandemic. But the main thing is that they wanted one extra day. The Defense Network, eviction notice, whatever you call it.
Eviction Defense Network.
Yes, they wanted one extra day because Tuesday was a holiday and the courts were closed to just go in there and file and get an extension to get to courts. So they were asking Sheriff Villanueva for one extra day to pause. And did he, fam?
No, he refused. And so this is pretty much what I said too. Some are suggesting that this is out of Villanueva's hands. However, the CDC moratorium has specific language relating to the purview of the sheriff. By doing nothing, he is violating those laws. Here are some members from ACE or Cal Organized on Twitter. You can find them there. They're helping this tenant move into her car or move her stuff. They're going to move her stuff somewhere, and then she's going to be in her car. And so what we did was we filmed a video, and it's about 15 minutes long. So we're going to end the show. So we're going to watch. You guys are going to see that whole section, that whole thing. Pasta asked the landlord some questions. We had Elena there pretty much say why this is on the sheriff and what he can do, and answer our questions as to what happens if this person didn't pay rent. Even if you didn't pay rent before COVID, you are still supposed to be protected, because again, the angle is that if you get evicted during COVID, then you're spreading COVID because you don't have a place to be, because it increases your likelihood of being homeless and therefore etc. So that's what the lawyers are using to keep these people as fighting or in their homes as much as they can. We got the perspective from the landlord. We got the perspective from the woman Nancy. And
and it's the CDC, fam. By the way, I just want to say this is the CDC saying evictions will actually help the spread of disease. It will increase the spread of the coronavirus. So in the middle of a pandemic, no matter what, in any situation, my ideology, and I think the Convo Couch will probably stand behind me, is pause. Don't do anything until everything's lifted and we got the situation under control. Now, I know a lot of landlords or whatnot would say, well, when is it going to ever end? They keep extending it, they keep extending it, they keep extending it, and we got to pay rent. But I mean, it's just a situation. We can't throw people out in the streets in the middle of a pandemic, and it's a sad situation.
There's also programs that the landlords can apply to
that they don't even know about. That was a sad thing, by the way.
And they should know about, because it's better for them. They're still covered. They'll still get money.
Yeah.
But they won't hurt the other tenants and vice versa. Yeah. So it's there's all these things that can happen, but a lot of these people don't know about it because they just assume that these tenants are against them and they hate each other, and that's kind of what we saw yesterday.
And Johnny, I was thinking about, remember when we watched the Robert Kennedy thing when he was walking around to the people in the South that were really poor, and he asked the gentleman, do you know about the assistance program? He says, no, sir, I don't. That's what we saw yesterday. Even with the intranet, people still don't know about these programs. And when they were telling them, it's like, do you know you screwed yourself out of the chance to get 80% of the past due rent, whatnot? They didn't even know. People don't even know about these programs, and that's something that's going on, is that the city, the state, the country will throw out these programs, but people don't know how to access it or get them. That's why having a lawyer in these situations is so vital, and what Kshama did in Seattle is so huge. I wish we can do that here, because a lot of people would understand about that program, fam.
Absolutely. So any more Super Rays before we go into
David
the video?
Guevara, who said, thank you for having Kshama Sawant on. She is genuine. So are you, David Guevara. We love you, and we appreciate that. Everybody hanging on YouTube, thank you so much. Johnny, you got anything else before the video?
Yeah, Streamlabs chat. Jared R. says, prison or U.S.-style socialism. We do provide housing for the homeless. Just have to wear orange while you're there.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah. No, he's absolutely right. I mean, if the problem with moving into your car, now, pretty much all over LA, especially in Pasadena, you can't park overnight. So what do you do? If you park overnight, they'll give you tickets. If you get enough tickets, they'll impound your car. Yeah. Then you don't have anything to cover you, or you end up in jail for so many infractions. Yeah. What do? You were criminalizing poverty. Because people who are poor don't have the means to protect themselves. So that's exactly what it is. The prison system is an extension of slavery. It's an extension of enslaving people who are, most of them are poor or have a drug related charges, which drugs, by the way, we should be rehabilitating people for harder drugs rather than imprisoning them. Then there's a mental illness aspect where there's a lot of people in jail who are mentally ill too. Yep. And what, come on, this is not, there's no rehabilitation. Yeah. It's all bad, and we have to, the only way to fight it is to be in the streets like these people were, like Kshama is, and continue that fight.
I just want to say thank you all to the people on YouTube. We don't forget about you over there. Stupid Enox, Clifford, Jilly Love, Nom Nom Yam, all you great people over there. Abolish politicians. Thank you so much. But if you have the chance, if you haven't gone over to Rokfin yet, please do so. It's helping us out because of the restrictions and the demonetization that YouTube has struck upon us. But thank you. We're not going to forget about you guys, Larry Fine. We love you as well. We thank you for supporting the show. You guys do such a great job in doing that and help us do these things. This is what we experienced yesterday. Let's take a look.
That is protecting some tenants from being evicted, but they need the cooperation of their landlord, and not all landlords are cooperating. And so more tenants are going to be evicted. And what happens when the pandemic is over and all this debt that's been accumulated comes due, and landlords start taking tenants to small claims court to reclaim all of this money? How are people ever going to catch up? So we need more action from our state officials, from Governor Gavin Newsom and all of our elected officials to protect tenants in this desperate situation. Please, Sheriff, stop these evictions.
Sheriffs!
Sheriff,
Stop these evictions! Sheriffs! Sheriffs! Stop the evictions! Sheriffs! Sheriffs! Stop the evictions! Sheriff! Sheriff! Stop the evictions!
Hi everyone, good afternoon. And I just want to say that this can keep happening, you know. We've been seeing evictions all over, and this must stop. The city has to stop putting bandages over and over on cases like this. They need the chance to stay at home. They need to be able to fight for their rights to be able to stay at home. The harassment has to stop. It has to stop now. People shouldn't be getting kicked out of their homes, and it shouldn't be harassed at all.
That's right.
Landlords must understand that we are in a pandemic, that everybody is suffering. People have lost their income. They can't pay the rent. Even if they had a part-time job, there's still food to put on their homes. Okay, so stop the harassment.
Yes.
You guys need to understand. The city needs to understand that they need to stop this. And the sheriffs need to stop kicking people out. Instead of that, protect them. Keep our people protected in their homes. Please call this number. It's 213-229-3001. This is for the sheriff. This is the sheriff's office. We need to let them know that this has to stop. We cannot keep having people being evicted.
Say the number one more time.
The number is 213-229-3001.
Okay, so what's your name and what's your position?
My name is James Malgar.
Okay.
I'm not ashamed. I live right here with my sister, my nephews, my mom.
Yeah.
We've been here for over 20 years.
Yeah.
We did not want to rent the back because a friend came to us saying that she needed a place to stay, so we opened the doors for her. We actually built a restroom and another bedroom for her and her daughter.
Okay.
Now, she's been here for almost 5 years. Yeah, I get it, pandemic hit last year.
Yeah.
I get it. But before that, everything was gravy. She never complained. There was no issues. Somehow, the year before, she started just avoiding the rent. This is pre-pandemic.
Okay.
She told my sister, as soon as I get my taxes, I'm gonna pay you the back rent. That's a 2019.
Got it.
So 2020 hit.
Yeah.
And then when she got her taxes, she's actually being inflammatory right now on Facebook, saying that my sister robbed her of her IRS tax, and which is not true. She got it. She's saying that she never did. She wasted it because she used to bring all these other homeless people and other people that were not too great back there drinking and partying inside.
Okay.
You know, she hasn't.
So your position is what?
My position. Look, I get tenants. Some people lost their job. I'm blessed that I kept my job.
Yes.
My sister kept her job too.
Yes.
You know, she's retired.
Yes.
We're blessed that we kept the job to keep the mortgage going.
Yes.
You know, other people were not lucky. We gave her the chance. She hasn't paid rent for 2 years.
Yes. Okay.
You know what I mean? We just told her, follow these simple steps, the simple rules, everything's gravy.
Okay.
She didn't.
All right. Just a little pushback, just because I'm saying like that. But don't you think it's still either under the conditions, because it is a pandemic and things are turned upside down, that we would be better off suited if we pause the situation until after all the restrictions are lifted? I mean, I understand your position and stuff like that, but no joke, we're still in the middle of a pandemic right now, and you know, I mean, I know that, you know, I lost my job, my place closed, and everything like that. Shouldn't we wait for a pause situation until after the pandemic is lifted?
Look,
despite there being pre-pandemic issues, it's still a pandemic.
She's calling all this negativity, which is not even negativity. She brought this upon herself. You know what I mean? We were cool in the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes.
You know, she was following, next thing you know, she's just bringing all these people doing drugs back there. Her own family doesn't even want to help her. You know what I mean? Because that's the type of person she is.
Okay.
So, you know, this is what I'm saying. if the tenants follow the rules,
Yes.
yeah, there should be a little leeway or stoppage of paying rent.
Yes.
But they have to find a way to how they're gonna eat food. If they have kids, how they're gonna feed them?
Yeah.
So they're gonna just stand there and do nothing?
Yes.
Everybody's finding a way. I found a way to get a little bit more extra income.
Well, you're blessed, and you have the ability to do that, but everybody might not be able to do that. And my only point is that with the pandemic almost being close to being in the mirror of being over, why don't we just have like a little bit more pause until after this situation and allow these people to just get a little bit more help? I understand what you're saying, but everybody has a different story, right? Then mental illness, a pandemic, depression and shit, it can lead to a lot of things. Why not just a little bit more pause?
No, she's saying that we did not try to help her. We did. But she doesn't want to talk to my sister, which is, the landlord with me.
Yes.
My mom, she don't want to talk to nobody. So how are we going to help people that don't want to be helped? You know what I mean? And she's just, doing things that are negative to everything. She had the water running. She said that she had no water because DWP cut off our water because she left the water running for 2 weeks. You know how much that bill came out to? $9,000. And we asked her, is something wrong with the toilet or the shower? She never replied back. So we had to get a plumber to freeze the water real quick, do her thing, they did their thing, and then to reroute the water.
Is there any conditions you would put forth that would allow the tenant to stay until the pandemic has lifted?
No.
Is there any way, a chance you'd?
No, she already did the damage. We tried.
Okay.
But if they don't wanna communicate with the landlord, we can't do nothing. And besides, it's already bad turmoil. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, thank you so much for your position.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I feel bad for individuals lost their job that they're trying to find a way, but they can't. But there is a way. There's the city's offering $5,000 grants for tenants.
They're limited on who can get them, and the situation. And I'm happy that you're blessed that you can find extra money with a job, but not everybody can, and we don't know everybody's situation. So my only thing was just to say,
I'll go.
Thank you so much for your time. So, Mrs. Pop, what are we doing here today?
So we are in the middle of a pandemic. The Center for Disease Control has said that evictions contribute to infections. There's a study that came out last December attributing 500,000 infections and 10,000 deaths nationally to evictions. The Center for Disease Control agrees that evictions equal an increase in infections. We cannot stop this pandemic if people are evicted. And Alex Villanueva cannot be responsible enough to look at this new order that came out from the CDC on Monday, take a week or two to study it, figure out how it impacts how he does evictions, and stop evictions during that time period. Because the order came on Monday, the earliest we could get people into court, because yesterday was a holiday and you have to give a certain amount of working notice, was today at 1:30.
Yes.
We did that for this tenant, but she got locked out at 8:30. Dozens of people got locked out today that would have been eligible for this. We have about 52 clients that we have on these CDC extensions. We've managed to get about half of them into court on these. We know it's going to happen. Give us an order for 9 days. So now that we have an order, we're going to go back out. But yeah, we're struggling to keep up with the need. It's very hard to write these motions, so it takes time.
You said that it's well within the Sheriff Alex Villanueva's purview to do this. He's kind of denied that it's not.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little insight to that and how he could do this? Because I believe you were saying something about he could allocate his resources differently.
Okay, so the sheriff has the authority to allocate his resources as he sees fit.
Yes.
It's called administrative discretion.
Yeah.
Number one, Sheriff Villanueva, use your administrative discretion to study the law that just came out for a week or two before you continue doing things that are in direct violation of that law.
Yes.
Number two, look at what that law says. And it says you should be doing things in a way that doesn't contribute to infection. So let's start making sure that people are tested before they get put on the street, for starters. Have a negative test in order to be evicted. He could also help us get the word out to tenants with that notice to vacate that he issues. Put a flyer that lets them know where to get legal help so that we get case day 1, not day 8. And then day 9, the tenant gets evicted. He could do dozens of things, but the most clear one is use your administrative discretion and behave responsibly, read the law, and change your procedures based on that law instead of continuing willy-nilly to evict people in violation of that law.
Gotcha. What do you say to people who say, well, you know, Elena, you guys are using loopholes and like lawyer techniques to just kick this can down the road, and you're just using technicalities to help people?
Housing is a human right, and in order to stop the pandemic, we have to have people housed. So I defend what I do because it's health-based and because housing is a human right.
The landlord, I believe it was.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I believe that was the landlord said that the tenant had not been paid for before COVID.
Yeah.
How are people using that loophole of things that happened before to start evicting people now?
So I don't know whether that's true, first of all, but assuming it is true, they were renting to her an illegal garage. They're not entitled to collect rent for it, and therefore that would have been her defense if it's true. And the CDC moratorium is the one law that protects people against pre-COVID rent evictions, because it's not really about the rent, it's about the health consequences of evicting someone.
Elena, what else can people do to help the fight?
So to help the fight, join either ACE, the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, or Tenants Together. Join your tenants union. To protect yourselves, go on stayhousedla.org. Come to 3 of our webinars, and then come once every other week to get updates. If you want a list of the webinars that I do, send an email to askanattorney@edn.la. You get an auto reply with the email, so you can go to the ones that I attend, that I do.
Elena, thank you so much for your time. One last message for Sheriff Villanueva.
Alex Villanueva, please be responsible. Please study the CDC order. Take a week or 2 to do that. It is your duty and your obligation to do that. And then if you decide that what you're doing is humane, just, and doesn't spread the virus, then I guess there's nothing much I can say to you. But rousting people at 6 in the morning and kicking them out on the street, barefooted in their pajamas, is not a way to curb the virus.
Okay, well today I'm getting evicted from my house. I live on 3732 Rosemead Avenue. This lady basically harassed me, would record me every day. She really wanted me out. I got sick, so reasons why I can't work, I'm still on disability. And they're trying to say that I was using drugs, doing drugs. I have documentation from my doctor. I went this morning to get it, just to prove them a point. They left me with no running water for 2 months. I couldn't shower, I couldn't take a poop. My house smelled like poop because I couldn't flush the toilet. They wouldn't let people out. My family members would literally have to run and leave me water, food, because she would not let them come in.
So this is, you're getting evicted right now and they're packing up everything.
They're packing what I couldn't take, because unfortunately the guy that was helping us had a car accident and I got stuck. All this stuff was outside, so it's dirty. It's gonna go in the trash, so I'm gonna do the correct thing to do and then call.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Me llamo Nancy Sigala.
Nancy, where are you gonna go today?
My car.
You're gonna stay in your car tonight?
Yeah.
So you have nowhere else to go today?
No.
Okay. Well, listen, I am very sorry that you're going through this, and we will have your story on tomorrow and give your word out and put it out there. Okay, Nancy?
Thank you so much.
Good luck with everything,
Thank
Nancy.
you.
Okay, so that was our pasta. You're ridiculous. Oh my
I know
God.
it's really sad though. I mean,
it is
a homeless person.
Another homeless person,
another
right.
homeless living in their car.
Yeah.
And fam, it's illegal to sleep in your car at nights in Los Angeles.
It is. You can't do it. You have to find a place where you can park, and those places are limited. I know some of our friends do. Mel, they have parking spaces where people can park, but I mean, it's limited. I mean, think of how many people there are here, how many places you can park. It is extremely difficult. You get bothered by the police, like I said. Yeah, there was so many things there. Sheriff Unova can do a lot more. Whether you are the landlord or whether you are the tenant, there are programs that could help you find a consensus, and like they need to know more about it. They obviously a lot of people don't. You know, the common trope to people who become unhoused is that they're using drugs and all of that. Whether that was true or not, either way, the law does say don't know evictions. And also, again, Elena brought up a really interesting point. You're not supposed to be charging rent for somebody living in a garage, because a garage isn't supposed to be a house. A lot of people do it though here in LA because rents are so high. And so they usually, you know, do that. But I mean, it's a precarious situation. And I think, you know, I think that if the government has failed to give smaller landlords any help, if the government has failed to give people very much help at all, then that is on them, and they're creating this crisis more than actually solving it. So
yeah, and if there's ever a case to just do what I said, pause. Just pause. It's still in the middle of a pandemic. I know you have your story. I know what you said is what, but it's the middle of a pandemic. Just pause. And, you know, it's a couple months away from then taking action and then finding out what's going on. It doesn't hurt. I mean, I know people are desperate for money, whatnot, but he even said he was very lucky and fortunate enough for him and his wife to keep their jobs, to keep their house. Just pause. Yeah. It's a pandemic. Shit is going down. It's like I told when I was back at my mother's place in Boca Raton, we have people who are fighting with each other inside the community. I'm like, listen, guys, this is a pandemic. We've been around this country. We've been from different states. People are at each other's throats. Just squash that shit. Let's just pause. Once we get out of this, hopefully we can return to a normal lifestyle of sorts. I don't think we're ever going back to normal, but let's at least get out of this pandemic, the situation right now, and then we can continue on the actions that need to be taken. Just pause. Anything else, guys? Yeah, Reeve Barker, by the way, left a super Ray. Thank you so much, Reeve. That is awesome.
Yeah, actually, Johnny, I put in the folder. There was a tweet by Mona Carmona that I wanted to share.
Oh yeah, we gotta show the fans.
There she is.
Mona, Sleepy Josh. Yo, pasta.
Hashtag OnlyFams.
Yes, hashtag OnlyFams.
OnlyFams.
You just love that, don't you? Yo, pasta and the crew.
Fams.
Look at that. That is so awesome. They got the fam shirts on. They are fam. Looking forward to seeing Sleepy Josh for the protest coming up on April 11th.
That's right.
That's it.
Can we show the flyers, Johnny? Do we have the flyers available? So we're having two actions in Los Angeles, two events for the 2-year anniversary where Julian Assange was taken from the Ecuadorian embassy. And we're doing a panel that's going to be geared towards organizers, activists, and press of the community. And we're going to be talking about Julian Assange, of course, what it means through imperialism, and also what it means for censorship, mainstream media, and how all of that is connected. We also are going to have questions the audience can ask about their issues and how their issues are related, or just in general about Julian Assange.
Look at that.
And so that's going to be the press panel on Saturday. On Sunday, we're going to have the CNN, the protest in front of CNN. We're going to march from CBS to CNN, and we're going to, say fuck censorship, go Julian Assange, again, to that Julian Assange must be free Julian Assange, free Assange now. And we're going to be doing this, of course, with people from Action for Assange, including Slow News Day's Steve Poikonen and Glory Jones, as well as other groups like our friend Rachel
Runke,
who is an anti-war activist, as well as any other people that want to join us in this fight. Like I've said before, and like I will say ad nauseum, every single issue that we want to fight for is in peril if we don't have the freedom to dissent, to express, to protect the independent media that is covering things like we just covered, that CBS, NBC, none of these people are covering that woman's story. And it's important to note that, because if we aren't there, you wouldn't hear that this is happening during the pandemic. So
yes.
Thanks,
and
guys.
By the way, that's our Easter egg. That's not the Easter egg given to you by AOC. And that's a great flyer, Johnny. I love the colors. Protest for free speech, protest for Julian Assange, protest against propaganda, protest against the mainstream media, guys. Come on. We were out there before. Let's do this again. Protest against all the false narratives. We get together and get out there and say, fuck you and fuck your censorship too. So join us here for Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue on those ones and twos.
Convo out.
All right. We'll see you Monday. I'm talking Ukraine.
Actually, we're going to be live.
Later.
Yeah, we will.
Yes. My bad.
Bye.
Still talking about Ukraine on Monday.